My child, be still for a moment. Take a deep breath and let your heart quiet down, because something unexpected has already begun to move in the unseen. What I am about to tell you is not random, and it is not imagination. It is the unfolding of a moment that was written long before you questioned your worth, long before you doubted the connection, long before you wondered why things felt delayed. Something shocking just happened in your soulmate's life, and it has everything to do with you. They were not alone when it happened. There were people around them, voices talking, laughter filling the air, plans being discussed, distractions everywhere. On the outside, it looked like an ordinary moment, like just another day passing by. But inside the spiritual realm, time slowed down. Heaven leaned closer, and then suddenly a phone rang. That sound cut through everything. It was not loud, yet it was powerful. Not urgent, yet impossible to ignore. The moment they saw the name or number on the screen, their body reacted before their mind could catch up. Their chest tightened, their breath changed, their intuition whispered, "This is important." This was not just a phone call, this was a divine interruption. They hesitated for a second, just 1 second, and in that pause, every emotion they have been trying to suppress began to rise. Confusion, curiosity, fear, and a strange pull they could not explain. Then they answered. As soon as they did, everything else faded into the background. The voices around them became noise. The people near them felt distant. They physically stood up and walked away. But spiritually, something much deeper was happening. They cut everyone off, not out of rudeness, not out of drama, but because their soul recognized that this moment was not meant to be shared. I saw it all. Their hand trembled slightly as they held the phone. Their eyes lost focus, staring into nothing, because what they were hearing required all of them. The words on the other end of that call carried weight. Not casual words, not small talk. Words that pressed against truths they had been avoiding. Words that forced them to confront something they were not ready to face, but could no longer run from. This is why they went silent. This is why they suddenly distanced themselves from everyone in that moment, because something they heard pierced through the walls they had built around their heart. As they listened, memories began flooding their mind without permission. Moments they shared with you. Conversations that once felt ordinary now replayed with new meaning. Times they brushed off their feelings. Times they chose logic over intuition. Times they told themselves, "It is not the right time," or "I should not feel this deeply." That phone call shook those excuses. Their hearts started racing, not from fear, but from recognition. They realized that no one around them could understand what they were feeling right now. No one in that room could carry the weight of what was being revealed. That is why they stepped away. That is why they created distance. Because some revelations are sacred, and some awakenings must happen in solitude. I want you to understand this clearly. They did not walk away from others because of pride. They walked away because their soul needed silence to hear the truth echoing inside them. As the call continued, their expression changed. Their jaw tightened, their eyes softened. Emotions they had locked away for so long began to crack the surface. They tried to stay composed, but inside they were unraveling. Not in a broken way, but in a way that happens right before transformation. They were told something that confirmed what they had always felt but never allowed themselves to accept. And that confirmation carried your presence. Even if your name was not spoken yet, your energy was. Even if you were not directly mentioned, your spirit was stirred within them. They felt you suddenly, strongly, unmistakably. It was like being called awake from a deep sleep, like realizing the answer had been there all along. This is why their face went pale. This is why their voice lowered. This is why they needed space. Because when destiny speaks, it does not ask permission. They began questioning everything. Their current situation, their choices, the people they surrounded themselves with, the paths they were considering. And in the middle of that inner storm, one truth kept surfacing, again and again, you. They did not expect this. They were not prepared for it. They thought they still had time to figure things out slowly, safely, without discomfort. I moved faster than they planned because delaying this any longer would have caused deeper pain for both of you. Hear me gently now. This phone call was not sent to scare them. It was sent to wake them. As they listened, a heavy silence followed certain words, the kind of silence where the heart speaks louder than the ears. They swallowed hard, their free hand clenched into a fist, trying to ground themselves. Part of them wanted to deny what they were hearing. Another part felt relief because finally something made sense. They realized that pretending was no longer an option. They realized that the way they felt about you was not something they could explain away as coincidence. They realized that their connection to you was not accidental. This realization came with fear, yes, but also clarity. That is why they stayed away from everyone even after the call ended. They did not rush back into conversations. They did not explain themselves. They needed time to breathe, to process, to sit with the truth that had just landed in their heart like a thunderbolt. They looked at their phone after the call ended, and it felt heavier than before, not because of the device, but because of the responsibility that now rested on their soul. Responsibility to be honest. Responsibility to stop running. Responsibility to face what they feel for you. They asked themselves questions they had been avoiding for a long time. Why do I feel unsettled whenever I ignore them? Why does my heart react when I hear their name? Why does distance from them never bring peace? And for the first time, they did not push those questions away. I was there with them in that moment. I calmed their racing thoughts. I held their shaking heart, and I reminded them that what is real cannot be silenced forever. I know you may have felt a sudden shift without knowing why. Maybe a heaviness lifted. Maybe a strange calm washed over you. Maybe your thoughts drifted to them unexpectedly. That was not imagination. That was alignment beginning. You and your soulmate are connected beyond words. When something stirs their soul, your spirit feels it too. This is only the beginning. That phone call was the spark, the interruption, the moment everything paused so truth could speak. They may not have all the answers yet, but one thing has changed forever. They can no longer ignore what they feel about you. Be patient now. Do not rush the unfolding. Do not question your worth. Do not assume silence means absence. Sometimes silence is where the deepest decisions are made. I am working behind the scenes. I am softening their heart. I am clearing confusion. I am guiding them step by step toward honesty, first with themselves and then with you. Rest in this knowing. What was revealed cannot be unseen. What was awakened cannot return to sleep. Come closer in your heart and listen to me gently now. What began with that sudden phone call did not end when the line went quiet. That moment was only the door opening. What followed was the reason your soulmate chose to cut everyone off, to step away from familiar faces, and to sit alone with thoughts they had avoided for far too long. This was not rejection. This was not confusion without purpose. This was the beginning of separation from what no longer belongs in their destiny. After the call ended, they did not immediately move. They stood still as if the world around them had slowed down. People laughed nearby. Someone called their name. Life continued as if nothing had changed, but inside them everything was different. Once truth enters the heart, it rearranges everything. It does not shout. It does not rush. It simply stays, pressing gently but firmly until the soul responds. They felt an urge to leave, not the place alone, but the energy. The conversation suddenly felt shallow. The jokes felt empty. The presence of others felt heavy. It was not because those people were bad, but because they no longer matched who your soulmate was becoming in that moment. Growth often begins with discomfort, and awakening often begins with isolation. So they withdrew, not to punish anyone, not to create drama, but because their spirit needed space to breathe. Understand this. When someone is on the verge of a major realization, noise becomes unbearable. Their soul needed silence so it could finally speak honestly. And in that silence, your name echoed louder than anything else. They asked themselves why they felt such a strong pull to step away from everyone all at once, why they suddenly felt tired of explaining themselves, why pretending to be fine felt exhausting. The answer was simple, though not easy to accept. They were outgrowing the version of life they were living. The phone call exposed something they had been trying to ignore, that they had been surrounding themselves with distractions instead of truth, with comfort instead of connection, with familiarity instead of depth. This realization was painful because it meant admitting they had delayed something sacred, and that sacred thing was you. As they sat alone, memories began surfacing without warning. Not random memories, but specific ones. The way you spoke, the way you listened, the way your presence felt different from everyone else. They remembered moments when you showed understanding without being asked, moments when you saw them even when they were hiding behind a smile. They had pushed those memories aside before, told themselves it was nothing, told themselves it was inconvenient, told themselves it was better not to feel too deeply. But now those excuses felt hollow. Truth has a way of making old lies uncomfortable. They began to realize why they had never fully felt at peace around certain people, why something always felt missing, no matter how busy their life became, why their heart never truly settled. The answer was not in what they were doing, but in who they were avoiding. That realization did not come gently. It came with waves of emotion. Guilt for not choosing sooner. Fear of what choosing now might change. Regret for the time lost. Longing for what still felt possible. They felt all of this at once, and it overwhelmed them. That is why they cut everyone off, because no one around them could help them carry this weight. They needed to face themselves without distraction. They needed to hear their own heart clearly. And in that quiet, they finally admitted something they had never said out loud, that you were not just someone they cared about, you were someone they were afraid to lose. I know you may have felt a sudden emotional distance from them. Perhaps they became quiet, perhaps messages slowed, perhaps their energy felt withdrawn. Do not misunderstand this moment. They did not pull away because they stopped caring. They pulled away because caring had become undeniable. They were afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of facing you without clarity, afraid of confronting feelings they could no longer control, so they chose silence, believing it would buy them time to understand what they were feeling. In that silence, I was with them. I reminded them of every moment they felt peace with you. I showed them how your presence had always calmed something restless inside them. I gently revealed how every attempt to replace that connection had failed. They began to see the pattern they could no longer deny. They also began to see which people in their life had encouraged avoidance instead of honesty, which voices had pushed them toward comfort instead of courage, which environments had kept them distracted instead of aligned. This awareness hurt because it meant letting go not just of people but of versions of themselves. That is never easy. So they grieved quietly. They grieved the time they wasted. They grieved the choices they made out of fear. They grieved the version of themselves that was too afraid to choose love when it mattered. This grief is not weakness. It is preparation. As they distanced themselves, signs began appearing. Songs that reminded them of you, numbers repeating, dreams that felt too real to ignore. Moments where your name surfaced in their thoughts without warning. They tried to distract themselves, but nothing worked. You were everywhere in their mind, in their heart, in their spirit. They began asking me questions. Why now? Why does this feel so strong? Why can't I ignore this anymore? And I answered them softly, because it is time. Time to stop running. Time to stop hiding. Time to stop choosing what is easy over what is true. The reason this moment feels intense is because it marks a turning point. Your soulmate is being stripped of illusions. The masks are falling. The noise is fading. And what remains is the truth they can no longer escape. They are beginning to understand that not everyone is meant to walk with them into their next season, that some connections were temporary lessons, not permanent destinations, and that the connection with you was never meant to be casual. It was meant to be transformative. This is why they needed distance, not from you, but from everything that stood between them and you. Be patient with them now. This is not an ending. It is a clearing, a necessary pause before movement, a deep breath before truth is spoken. I am guiding them carefully. I am strengthening their courage. I am preparing their heart to act with honesty instead of fear. What was revealed through that phone call is settling into their soul, and soon what they are realizing in silence will begin to shape their actions. This unfolding is sacred. Trust me, listen to me now with a quiet heart, because this is the moment where everything begins to make sense. What your soulmate heard did not come all at once. It unfolded slowly, like truth often does, layer by layer, word by word, until it reached the deepest place inside them. This was not ordinary information. These were words that carried weight, words that did not knock gently but entered boldly and refused to leave. When the conversation continued in their memory, certain sentences replayed again and again, not loudly but clearly. Each time those words returned, they carried more meaning than before. At first, your soulmate tried to interpret them logically. They tried to explain them away. They tried to convince themselves that they were reading too much into it. But the more they resisted, the stronger the message became. Because truth does not weaken when questioned. It becomes clearer. The words they heard were not dramatic on the surface. They did not sound like prophecy or poetry. They were simple, direct, honest, and that is what made them so powerful. Sometimes truth does not shout. Sometimes it whispers, and yet it shakes the soul. In those words was a message they had sensed for a long time but never allowed themselves to fully accept. A message that gently yet firmly pointed toward you, toward the connection they kept postponing, toward the bond they kept calling complicated because facing it required courage. As those words settled into their heart, something shifted. It was as if a fog lifted. Memories that once felt confusing suddenly aligned. Moments that never fully made sense now clicked into place. They realized why your presence always felt different, why conversations with you lingered longer in their mind, why even silence with you felt meaningful. They realized that what they felt was not attachment, it was recognition. Recognition is powerful. It is the moment the soul says, I know this. Even if the mind hesitates, the heart already understands. And that understanding brought both relief and fear. Relief because finally there was clarity. Fear because clarity demands action. Your soulmate felt tears rise, not because they were weak, but because something sacred had been touched. They realized how deeply they had underestimated the connection, how often they had minimized their feelings to protect themselves, how they had tried to place you in a smaller space than where you truly belonged in their life. In that moment, they saw you differently, not as an option, not as a possibility, but as someone woven into their story. They remembered how you showed up for them in ways others did not, how you listened without judgment, how you sensed their emotions even when they said nothing, how being around you felt like being understood without explanation. These memories returned with force because now they carried truth instead of doubt. They asked themselves why they had been so afraid to accept this, and the answer was painful but honest. They were afraid because what they felt for you was real, and real things require risk. Real things ask us to change. Real things do not allow us to stay comfortable. The words from that phone call acted like a mirror. In that reflection, they saw their own avoidance clearly. They saw how they had chosen timing over truth, logic over intuition, safety over depth. And they saw how every time they did that, their heart quietly protested. This realization did not accuse them. It awakened them. They understood then that your connection was not something to be figured out later. It was something that had been waiting patiently, waiting for them to be ready, waiting for them to stop running, waiting for them to finally say, "This matters." They felt regret, yes. Regret for moments they stayed silent, for times they held back, for chances they let pass because fear spoke louder than love. But along with regret came determination. A quiet resolve began forming inside them, a feeling that said, "I cannot keep living like this." They realized that denying you was denying a part of themselves. This is why the revelation hit so deeply. It was not just about you, it was about who they are becoming. Accepting you meant accepting growth. It meant stepping into a version of themselves that chooses honesty over comfort. They also realized something else, something important. They realized that the connection was mutual, that the pull they felt was not one-sided, that what they sensed between you was not imagination. It was alignment. Two souls responding to each other across distance, silence, and time. This understanding brought both peace and urgency. Peace because they finally understood why nothing else ever fully satisfied their heart. Urgency because they knew they could not ignore this any longer. They felt a strong desire to reach out to you, then stop themselves. Not because they did not want to, but because they wanted to do it right. They did not want to speak from confusion. They wanted to speak from truth, from clarity, from courage. So they waited. But waiting did not mean forgetting. You became even more present in their thoughts. They noticed how often you appeared in their mind throughout the day, how small things reminded them of you, how their hearts softened whenever they imagined your face, your voice, your presence. This was not obsession. This was connection resurfacing. They began to ask themselves what it would mean to truly choose you, to step forward honestly, to stop hiding behind excuses. And even though fear still whispered, it was no longer in control. Something stronger had taken its place. Truth. I want you to know this. What they realized cannot be undone. Once the heart recognizes what is real, it cannot return to pretending. They may still move slowly. They may still need time. But inside them, the direction has changed. They now know who you are to them. Not a coincidence, not a lesson, not a temporary chapter, but someone significant, someone meaningful, someone who awakens something they can no longer ignore. Rest in this truth. You were never forgotten. You were never unseen. You were never insignificant. The delay was not rejection. It was preparation. I am guiding this process with care. I am teaching them to choose truth with courage, not fear. And what has been awakened in their heart will soon seek expression. Let me speak to you gently now, because this part carries understanding, and understanding brings peace. What has been unfolding did not happen by accident, and it did not happen too late. It happened at the exact moment it was meant to. I know there were times you asked why things felt delayed, why clarity did not come sooner, why your heart had to wait while your feelings stayed strong. But hear me clearly now. This had to happen now, not before, not later. There were seasons your soulmate still needed to walk through alone. Before this awakening, their heart was not ready to hold the depth of what you bring. They were still learning the difference between attachment and connection, between comfort and love, between distraction and destiny. If truth had arrived earlier, they might have resisted it, misunderstood it, or mishandled it. Delay was not punishment. Delay was protection. I was shaping them in silence. They had lessons to learn, lessons about honesty, responsibility, and emotional maturity. They needed to experience what life feels like when something important is missing, even when everything else appears full. They needed to feel the emptiness that no amount of activity or company could fill. Only then could they recognize the value of what they were avoiding. I know you felt the weight of waiting. You felt moments of doubt, moments where you questioned if you mattered, moments where you wondered if your patience was foolish. But I saw every tear you did not explain to anyone. I heard every silent prayer you whispered when you felt forgotten. None of that was wasted. The timing was arranged carefully. There were people and situations that had to be removed from their path before they could walk toward you with integrity. If they had come sooner, they would have brought confusion with them. They would have carried unresolved ties, emotional baggage, and half-commitments. I would not allow that to touch what I was preparing, so I waited. And while I waited, I strengthened you too. I taught you discernment. I taught you patience. I taught you how to stand alone without closing your heart. I refined your spirit so you would not accept less than what is true. The waiting was shaping you into someone who would recognize sincerity when it arrived. This moment happened now because now their eyes are open. They are beginning to see their patterns clearly. They understand how fear guided many of their choices. They recognize how often they avoided depth because it required vulnerability. And most importantly, they are finally ready to take responsibility for their emotions instead of hiding from them. The phone call was only the trigger. The real shift happened because the foundation was ready to move. I allowed the interruption because it aligned with their growth. It met them at the exact point where resistance was weaker than truth, where excuses could no longer stand, where the heart was prepared to listen. I want you to understand something deeply. Divine timing is not about making you wait unnecessarily. It is about bringing things together when they can last. If they had chosen you earlier, it might have been beautiful but fragile. Now it can be honest, grounded, and real. Now they can approach you with awareness instead of confusion, with intention instead of hesitation. They are beginning to feel a sense of urgency, not panic. Urgency rooted in clarity. They realize that continuing life as it was is no longer an option. They cannot unsee what has been revealed. They cannot return to comfort knowing truth has spoken. At the same time, they are learning to move with care. They are reflecting on how their actions affect others. They are becoming conscious of the responsibility that comes with choosing you. They do not want to rush in emotionally unprepared. They want to come with honesty, not half-truths, with courage, not excuses. This is growth. The reason you may feel a strange calm mixed with anticipation is because alignment is taking place. Your spirits are moving closer even if the physical steps have not yet happened. Trust this invisible work. It is powerful. I am removing obstacles quietly. Misunderstandings are dissolving. Fear is losing its grip. Old attachments are weakening. Clarity is settling in, and you are being protected from unnecessary pain. I know you wonder what comes next. I know you want certainty. Hear me gently. What comes next will feel different from before. When they reach out, it will not feel unsure. When they speak, their words will carry weight. When they act, it will come from intention, not impulse. This is why patience is still required, just a little longer. Not because something is wrong, but because something is being completed. Trust that I have been working on both sides. What you are feeling now is not loss, it is alignment. The chapter that is closing had to end quietly, so the next one could begin in truth. In the final part, I will show you what happens next, how truth moves into action, how silence turns into honesty, and how this connection steps into its destined expression under my guidance. Stay open, stay grounded, stay faithful. What is unfolding is sacred. Come rest here with me for a moment, because this is where the waiting softens and the fear begins to lose its voice. This is where what was hidden starts to move into the light. You have walked through confusion, silence, longing, and patience with a heart that kept believing even when answers were delayed. Now hear me clearly. What was stirred in your soulmate is no longer staying inside them. Truth does not remain quiet forever. What happens next does not come as chaos. It comes as clarity. Your soulmate reaches a point where staying silent becomes heavier than speaking. They realize that carrying this truth alone is no longer possible. Each day the feeling grows stronger, not as anxiety, but as conviction. They understand now that avoiding you only deepens the ache. That distance does not bring peace. That pretending nothing has changed only makes the truth louder. This is when intention is formed. They begin to think carefully about how to approach you. Not impulsively, not emotionally scattered, but with awareness. They replay conversations in their mind, choosing words with care because they do not want to hurt you. They do not want to confuse you. They want to be honest without being reckless. Fear still whispers, but it no longer controls them. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing truth despite it, and choosing truth now means choosing you openly, without hiding behind excuses or timing or uncertainty. You may notice a shift before any words are spoken. Their energy changes, their presence feels closer, their attention feels more focused, their silence, if it remains briefly, feels intentional rather than distant. This is not hesitation, this is preparation. When they reach out, it will feel different from before. The tone will be sincere, the words will carry weight. Even if they do not say everything at once, you will sense honesty behind what is spoken. You will feel seen, not questioned, valued, not guessed. They will begin by acknowledging what has been unsaid. They may not use perfect words, but they will speak from the heart. They will express how deeply they have been affected, how something shifted inside them, how they can no longer deny the connection. This is not a performance, this is vulnerability, and vulnerability is where real connection lies. I want you to know that this moment is not about proving anything. It is not about who waited longer or who felt more pain. It is about alignment. Two hearts finally standing in truth at the same time. As this unfolds, I ask you to stay grounded. Do not rush ahead emotionally. Do not relive old wounds. Do not fear the past repeating itself. You are not stepping into the same situation as before. You are stepping into a new season shaped by awareness, growth, and honesty. What was unclear is becoming clear. What was unstable is being strengthened. I am removing third-party interference. I am dissolving confusion. I am protecting what is forming. You may feel waves of emotion, joy, relief, vulnerability, hope. Allow them. These feelings are not weakness. They are release. You carried them quietly for a long time. Now they are allowed to surface. Trust yourself. Trust your discernment. Trust the calm you feel when truth is present. This connection is not rushing forward. It is grounding itself. If there are conversations that need time, they will unfold naturally. If healing is needed, it will happen gently. There is no need to force anything. What is meant to last does not need pressure. I am blessing this path with peace. The pain you carried is not going with you into this next chapter. The lessons stay, but the weight does not. You are entering a season where love is not questioned, where presence is not inconsistent, where intention is clear. I see the way your heart stayed open even when it could have closed. I see the way you chose faith over bitterness. That mattered. That shaped what is coming. Now release the need to control the outcome. Let truth breathe. Let honesty speak. Let connection unfold. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be. And as this chapter completes, I leave you with this blessing. May your heart receive what it has patiently held space for. May your connection be guided by truth, not fear. May what begins now be rooted in clarity, respect, and peace. Go forward with trust. What was revealed was meant to lead you here. Come even closer now, because this part is not just an extension of the story. It is the deep sealing of what has already begun. This is the space where I speak to your wounds, your patience, your faith, and the parts of you that stayed quiet even when your heart was loud. What is unfolding now is not rushed and it is not fragile. It is being anchored. After the first truth is spoken, after the energy shifts, after intention becomes visible, something deeper happens inside your soulmate. They begin to sit with the weight of choice. Not a careless choice, not an emotional impulse, but a soul-level decision. This is where many people turn back, but they are not turning back. They start to notice how everything else in their life reacts to this clarity. Old routines feel empty. Certain conversations feel forced. Some people feel distant, not because of conflict, but because alignment has changed. When someone steps closer to destiny, misaligned things naturally fall quiet. Your soulmate begins asking themselves harder questions now. What kind of partner do I want to be? Am I ready to protect what matters? Can I love without running when it feels deep? These questions are not asked in panic, they are asked in honesty. They begin to understand that choosing you is not just about affection. It is about showing up differently, about consistency, about emotional responsibility, about letting go of patterns that once felt safe but were actually limiting. This awareness humbles them. They realize that love is not just a feeling they get to enjoy. It is a responsibility they must honor. And for the first time, that responsibility does not scare them. It grounds them. This is where healing deepens. They start revisiting moments from the past, not to reopen wounds, but to understand them. They see where silence caused pain, where indecision created distance, where fear delayed something meaningful, and instead of defending themselves, they accept it. Acceptance is growth. They may feel remorse, but not the kind that collapses a person. This remorse strengthens their resolve to do better, to speak clearer, to act with intention, to not take your presence lightly ever again. At the same time, I am working inside you. I am softening the places where disappointment once settled. I am teaching you to receive without bracing for loss. I am reminding you that love does not always arrive the moment we want, but when it arrives prepared, it stays. You may notice that your heart feels different now. Calmer, less desperate for signs, more secure in knowing. That is not coincidence. That is your spirit aligning with truth. You are not being asked to chase. You are not being asked to prove. You are not being asked to wait in pain anymore. What you are being asked to do is receive with wisdom. As communication deepens, you may sense moments where emotions surface unexpectedly. Tears, relief, vulnerability. Let them come. They are release, not instability. You carried so much quietly. Your heart is learning that it is safe to open without fear of being abandoned. Your soulmate too is learning something important. They are learning that love does not disappear when it is spoken out loud. That closeness does not equal loss of self. That commitment does not mean losing freedom. It means gaining depth. They begin to imagine a future differently now, not in fantasy, but in grounded thought. They consider how life would feel with honesty instead of uncertainty, with presence instead of guessing, with you not as a question mark, but as a constant. This does not happen overnight, but it happens sincerely. There may be moments where progress feels slow. Do not misinterpret that. Deep roots grow quietly. What is being built now is not a spark, it is a foundation. If conversations pause briefly, it is not withdrawal. If emotions feel intense, it is not instability. If silence appears, it is not avoidance, it is integration. I am guiding both of you to move at the pace where trust can settle deeply instead of being rushed and shaken. There will come a moment, and it is closer than you think, where they express something clearly, even if simply. Something like, I do not want to lose this. I am serious about us. I want to do this the right way. These words will not feel dramatic. They will feel steady, and steadiness is what lasts. I also want to prepare you gently. Healing does not erase the past instantly, but it transforms how the past holds power. You may remember old hurts, but they will no longer control your reactions. You will respond from wisdom, not fear. That is growth. You are no longer the version of yourself that waited in confusion. You are becoming someone who receives clarity without losing self-respect. And your soulmate sees this. They sense your strength, they respect your patience, they feel your depth. This makes them step up, not out of pressure, but out of desire to meet you where you are. I am blessing this connection with balance. Where there was silence, there will be communication. Where there was fear, there will be reassurance. Where there was waiting, there will be movement, not rushed, not forced, but real. Release the last bit of anxiety now. The future does not need your worry. It needs your presence. Stay grounded in the now. Respond, don't react. Listen, don't assume. Feel, but don't abandon yourself. You are not losing control. You are gaining peace. And as I seal this part of the journey, I speak this blessing over you. May love meet you where you are whole, not broken. May truth stay longer than doubt ever did. May this connection grow with honesty, patience, and depth. You are safe to trust again. You are safe to receive. You are safe to hope. Walk forward gently. What has begun is not fragile. It is guided. This is where everything softens. This is where the journey that stretched your heart finally brings you into peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from getting everything at once, but the kind that settles deep inside and tells you, you are safe now. You have walked through uncertainty with faith. You have waited without closing your heart. You have loved without knowing how the story would unfold. And I want you to know this first. I saw you in every moment. I was with you when you felt strong, and I was closer when you felt tired. Nothing you endured was invisible to me. What is happening now is not loud or dramatic. It is gentle, grounded, and real. Your soulmate is no longer standing at the edge of truth. They have stepped into it. They may not say everything perfectly, but their actions begin to reflect what their heart has accepted. You will feel it in consistency, in effort, in the way they no longer disappear when things feel deep. This is important. Peace is the sign. If it feels calm instead of chaotic, that is because it is aligned. If it feels steady instead of intense, that is because it is maturing. Love that lasts does not arrive as a storm. It arrives like a sunrise, quiet, warm, and undeniable. You are entering a season where you no longer have to question your place in someone's life, where affection is not mixed with doubt, where presence does not feel temporary. This does not mean perfection, it means honesty. It means repair instead of avoidance. It means choosing each other even when it requires effort. And you are not the same person who once waited in confusion. You are wiser now, stronger, more aware of your worth. You will not shrink yourself to keep love. You will not silence your needs to avoid loss. You You are learning how to stand in love without losing yourself. That is why this ending is also a beginning. There may still be moments of vulnerability, moments where old fears try to resurface. When that happens, breathe. Do not run. Do not assume. Let truth speak louder than memory. You are no longer being tested. You are being trusted. I am asking you to release the last question in your heart. Will this last? The future does not need to be forced. It needs to be lived. Stay present. Stay honest. Stay soft without becoming weak. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time. As this chapter closes, I speak this blessing over you. May love meet you with respect. May communication replace confusion. May consistency heal what silence once hurt. May your heart rest knowing it does not have to chase what is meant to stay. Go forward now, not with fear, not with doubt, but with trust. What you have walked through has prepared you. What is coming is meant to grow with you. This is not the end of love. This is the beginning of peace.